Imagine this. You're standing in a room full of people. Some you know, some you don't. The air hums with quiet conversation, shifting glances, subtle smiles. You've said nothing, and yet, eyes follow you. People shift their postures. Some grow restless, others strangely drawn in. You've made no announcement. You haven't argued or defended or performed. You're simply present, and that presence unsettles the atmosphere. Why? Because there is something unexplainable, almost ancient, about the energy of someone who refuses to be reactive. Someone who no longer plays the game. Someone who holds their silence like a blade. Now ask yourself, what if you could be that person? Not the loudest voice in the room. Not the most helpful, the most charming, the most agreeable. But the one who carries themselves like a storm just behind calm skies. Whose absence is louder than most people's presence. What if true power lies not in being everywhere, but in being unreachable? We've been taught a lie so subtle we mistake it for morality. That goodness is availability. That to be kind is to always be accessible. That to be loved is to be constantly on call, emotionally, psychologically, physically. But what if that's not love? What if that's control? Pause. Take a breath. How many times have you said yes when your soul screamed no? How often have you answered calls, texts, and cries for help when all you wanted was one silent hour to return to yourself? And how many of those people, whose emergencies consumed your time and energy, were still there when you broke? You have been taught to betray yourself in the name of connection. And that betrayal is costing you more than time. It's costing you your sovereignty. Now imagine something else. Imagine pulling back, not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but out of a deep, sacred responsibility to your inner self. Imagine becoming intentionally unavailable. You don't chase. You don't explain. You don't offer your soul as an emotional vending machine. And suddenly, everything shifts. Because here's the paradox. The more available you are, the less people value your presence. But the moment you choose distance, reflection, containment, the world either panics or pays attention. This isn't about manipulation. This is about reclamation. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But becoming who you truly are requires a sacred silence. A refusal to be defined by the needs and projections of others. A willingness to step away, even if it means stepping alone. So here's the great question. Who are you when you are no longer a reaction? When you're no longer the fixer, the explainer, the constant emotional responder? When the noise of others no longer drowns out the whisper of your soul? Could it be that your greatest power is hidden in the space you've been taught to avoid, the space of unavailability? Sit with that. Because in a world addicted to instant responses, rapid validation, and emotional overexposure, those who can master silence are not just rare, they are unstoppable. Now let me warn you, this journey will not be easy. It will feel strange. You'll be tempted to fill the silence with apologies. You'll fear being misunderstood, disliked, even forgotten. But what if being misunderstood is the first step toward being truly seen? Stay with me, because in this video, we're going to reveal a truth so deep, so disruptive, that it might shatter the way you've seen yourself and the way the world has trained you to behave. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. We're about to explore the hidden architecture of emotional control, the psychology of availability, and the ancient power of withdrawal. Like this video and subscribe, because once you understand what I'm about to show you, you will never again be used the same way. You are not here to be useful. You are here to be whole. Now, shall we continue? There is an invisible machine, one you were placed in before you could speak, before you could choose. It hums quietly beneath the surface of your life, shaping your thoughts, sculpting your behavior, whispering rules into your psyche. Be kind. Be helpful. Be available. It does not ask, it expects. And this expectation becomes your default setting. You learn to smile even when it hurts. You learn to listen even when you're breaking. You learn to give even when nothing is left. But where did this machine come from? To understand that, we must go deeper. Not just into the heart, but into the roots of the human psyche. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to survive society. It is the part of ourselves we present to the world, agreeable, polite, useful, palatable. It is crafted early in life, molded by the reactions of those around us. If a child cries and is ignored, they learn to smile instead. If a child is only praised when they are helpful, they learn to derive their worth from usefulness. Over time, the mask fuses with the face, and we forget it's a mask at all. But here's the catch. The persona is not who you are. It's who you became to be accepted. And so, like a ghost in your own skin, you float through life, available to everyone, except yourself. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." And that's exactly the tragedy. Because the more you live for others, the more invisible you become to yourself. Society rewards this invisibility. It calls it selflessness, responsibility, maturity. But is it really? Ask yourself, who benefits from your constant availability? Is it you? Or is it those who depend on your reactions to feed their own sense of control? Here lies the darker truth. Your over-availability is a form of unconscious submission. It's the result of being programmed to seek love through sacrifice, to earn belonging by becoming useful. But love earned through performance is not love, it's leverage. It binds you to roles. Roles you never chose, but continue to play out of fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being nothing if you are no longer needed. Arthur Schopenhauer described life as a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. But he missed a third state, emotional servitude, the state of living as someone else's solution. Not because you are weak, but because you have been conditioned to believe that love is something you have to deserve. This is where philosophy meets psychology, and where both meet spiritual slavery. From birth, you were placed on a stage. But the script wasn't written by you. It was written by others, family, culture, religion, school. Every line, every reaction, every behavior designed to keep the peace, to win approval, to avoid punishment. The result? You became accessible, predictable, emotionally exploitable. And the more consistent your availability, the more others grew to expect it. Soon, silence becomes an offense. Absence becomes betrayal. Boundaries become accusations. Why? Because you were never seen as a person, only as a function. This is not just emotional. It's metaphysical. Jean-Paul Sartre warned of bad faith, living inauthentically by accepting roles imposed from outside. The helper, the peacekeeper, the rescuer. Roles that allow you to avoid the terror of choosing your own path. But what if it's time to choose? To turn away from the puppet strings of obligation and into the terrifying clarity of selfhood? Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the concentration camps, said something profound. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that is exactly what is being asked of you. Because here's the truth that shakes the soul. No one is coming to set you free. They can't. Because they are invested in your chains. You have been taught to fear solitude. But it is in solitude that you meet the parts of you that never got to speak. The ones that didn't smile. The ones that didn't agree. The ones that knew something was wrong all along. And in that silence, a new voice emerges. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It doesn't apologize. It says simply, I am no longer available. Not to emotional vampires. Not to shallow validation. Not to roles that suffocate your soul. But this voice comes at a cost. The persona begins to crack. People begin to question. Accusations rise. Guilt whispers. Loneliness prowls. But beneath it all is a stirring, something ancient and sovereign. A knowing that you were never meant to live like this. Not as a tool, not as a servant, but as a self. A whole, mysterious, indivisible self. And so the stage begins to darken. The spotlight fades. The mask slips. And you take your first step away from expectation and toward authenticity. There is a strange kind of suffering that doesn't scream. It doesn't leave scars on the skin or echo in the halls of hospitals. It is a quiet erosion, a theft of the soul so subtle that even you don't notice it happening. Not at first. It begins the day you realize that you are constantly tired, not just physically, but existentially. A fatigue that sleep cannot fix. A weariness born from constantly being on accessible, alert, reactive. And yet, you continue. Because stopping feels worse. You don't stop because if you stop, you'll have to face it. You don't know who you are without being needed. Let that sink in. When your sense of identity becomes fused with your usefulness to others, you become a prisoner of performance. And what is worse, you smile while it happens. But here's the consequence no one tells you. You begin to decay from the inside. Not dramatically. Slowly. First, your passion dies. Then, your curiosity. Your laughter becomes scripted. Your silence grows heavy. You wake up in the middle of the night, not with panic, but with emptiness. A numbness. A sense that something essential is missing, but you can't name it. And that's the trick. Because the cage is invisible. This is what the philosopher Alan Watts called the taboo against knowing who you are. Society does not want you to ask, who am I, really, beneath the roles? Because if you ask that, the whole structure trembles. So instead, the system distracts you with obligations, notifications, crises that aren't yours to fix. You become a responder, not a creator. And your life becomes a loop. React, respond, recover, repeat. Psychologists call this emotional labor. But it's more than that. It's spiritual exhaustion disguised as responsibility. You give so much of yourself that you forget what it feels like to belong to yourself. And slowly, a terrifying truth begins to surface. The more available you are, the more invisible you become. Because people don't respect what is always accessible. We value what is rare. We chase what is distant. And that's the tragedy. You make yourself available so others will stay. But in doing so, you become easy to leave. This is not just a personal problem. It is a cultural one. In a society driven by urgency and overstimulation, availability becomes a currency. Your value is tied to your response time, your willingness to bend, your capacity to serve. You become a brand, a function, a signal. And what happens to the human soul in such a system? It shrinks. It forgets how to exist without performing, proving, or pleasing. Jung warned us of this. He saw it coming. He said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. But today, the burden has shifted. It's not just the unlived life, it's the unclaimed self. The version of you that was never allowed to emerge because you were too busy managing everyone else's storms. And here is the most sinister consequence of all. When you are always available, you never learn to be present. Because presence requires depth. And depth cannot coexist with constant exposure. It is like trying to find stillness in a storm. You don't just lose energy. You lose connection to your intuition, to your boundaries, to your truth. You forget how to sit with yourself without distraction. You forget how to say no without guilt. You forget that you are allowed to disappear, not to abandon, but to return to yourself. Let me tell you what happens when you begin to reclaim that. At first, people panic. They don't say it, but they feel it. They feel the shift, the boundary, the unspoken, I am no longer yours to summon. Some will guilt you. Some will shame you. Some will vanish the moment you stop serving their need. But some will grow silent, not out of anger, but out of respect, because they recognize what's happening. They see you rising from the debris of overfunctioning, unmasking yourself, and becoming real. And in that silence, something magical begins to occur. You become unpredictable. And what is unpredictable is powerful. Because when you no longer give people the reaction they expect, they no longer know how to control you. And when they can't control you, they must either meet you with truth or leave. But now, you're no longer afraid of either. Because your value is no longer tied to your availability. Your worth is no longer measured by your usefulness. And your peace, finally, belongs to you. The unseen consequence of overavailability is not just burnout. It is the death of your mystery. And mystery is the doorway to reverence. Bring back the mystery. Bring back yourself. Let us now speak of rebellion. Not the kind that burns buildings or marches in the streets, but a quieter, far more dangerous kind. The rebellion of the self. A revolution that begins in silence. A revolt that begins the moment you decide, I will no longer be emotionally available to everyone. This rebellion is not loud, but it shakes empires, especially the empire of expectations you've built around you. It starts small, subtle, like a whisper breaking through years of noise. You miss a call and don't apologize. You see a message and let it sit. You hear someone's frustration and don't absorb it. You feel guilt rise and let it pass like a cloud. And in that moment, something begins to crack open inside you. Not pain, not fear, but space. Space for clarity. Space for sovereignty. Space for you. Most people don't know how to break free because they think freedom comes after permission. But true freedom is never granted. It is taken. Taken back from the roles you didn't agree to, from the emotional obligations you never consented to, from the invisible contract that says you must be everything for everyone or risk being nothing. And so you must dismantle the contract, line by line, reaction by reaction, yes, by sacred, terrifying no. But how? It begins with a shift in identity. You are not the helper, not the fixer, not the healer, the good friend, the emotional dumping ground. You are a sovereign field of energy, a mystery, a boundary, a silence that cannot be easily accessed. To embody this, you must practice what the Stoics called ataraxia, the art of inner stillness, undisturbed by external noise. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire and yet wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So stop reacting. Start choosing. Let others feel what they feel. Let them misinterpret. Let them call you distant, cold, selfish. Let them struggle with your boundary. Because your job is not to make others comfortable. It is to make your soul sovereign. This is what Friedrich Nietzsche meant when he wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." Your rebellion is not against others. It's against the version of yourself they trained you to be. And that version is dying. Now let me give you practical tools, rituals of unavailability. 1. Time blocking for the soul. Every day, set sacred time when you do not respond to anything. Not out of rudeness, but out of reverence for your inner world. You are not a notification center. 2. The sacred pause. Before replying, breathing. Before explaining, waiting. Before defending, observing. Learn to sit in the tension. That space holds your freedom. 3. Radical disconnection. Turn off your phone. Leave a message unread. Walk without documenting. Reclaim your presence from the digital abyss. 4. Selective circles. Audit who has access to you. Not everyone who knows you deserves you. Energy is currency. Spend it with discernment. 5. Silence as strategy. Let your silence be loud. Let it question. Let it disturb. People panic when they can't read you, and that's okay. Mystery is magnetic. 6. No without explanation. Practice saying no without giving a reason. You don't need to justify your peace. You don't need permission to protect it. And now, perhaps most importantly, 7. Choose sacred solitude. You must learn to be alone, truly alone. To walk, to breathe, to eat, to exist without performing. Because only in solitude will you rediscover who you were before the world told you what to be. The rebellion is not about becoming distant or cruel. It is about becoming whole. It is about waking up one morning and realizing that you no longer feel like a servant to everyone else's urgency. And in that moment, you will feel it, the return of your dignity. You are not here to be nice. You are here to be true. You are not here to be predictable. You are here to be free. You are not here to be constantly accessed. You are here to be discovered. And discovery requires distance. The great rebellion of this age is to reclaim your inner empire, not to dominate others, but to govern yourself. To become untouchable, not by force, but by frequency. Because when you no longer jump at every sound, answer every call, explain every emotion, you rise to a level where noise cannot reach. And from that height, you finally see. The game was never yours to win. The game was designed to drain you. You were never meant to be emotionally available for everyone. You were meant to be aligned with your own energy. And the moment you realize that, you become free. What if I told you that your disappearance was never the end, but the beginning? What if everything you feared about being misunderstood, about being alone, about being distant, was actually the doorway to your becoming? What if your silence wasn't the absence of connection, but the beginning of a deeper one, the one you've longed for your entire life, the connection with your own soul? The final and most powerful truth is this. You were never born to be accessible. You were born to be undeniable. But undeniable does not mean loud. It does not mean present in every room, every screen, every conversation. It means your energy speaks even in absence. Your being radiates even when unseen. There is a secret, ancient law whispered only in the hearts of the truly sovereign. What is rare becomes revered. What is always present becomes invisible. And for too long, you have lived as if your worth must be proven through your presence, through your emotional labor, your constant replies, your reflexive empathy. But now, you're beginning to remember. Your presence is a gift, not a given. And that gift should never be handed to those who only know how to consume, demand, and drain. Let us go deeper. Carl Jung spoke of the self, the totality of who you are beyond ego, beyond persona, beyond roles. The self is not polite. It is not easily explained. It is not available on demand. It is the eternal, untamed part of you, the one who waits quietly behind the mask, behind the smiles, behind the "I'm fine." It is this self that begins to rise when you withdraw, when you stop explaining, when you stop reacting, when you stop being used as an emotional mirror for people who never looked at themselves. You are not here to be someone else's piece. You are here to become your own truth. And truth, real truth, is never popular. It gets you labeled, dismissed, feared, even hated. But listen closely, because here is where the transformation completes. Those who reject you for reclaiming yourself were never with you. They were with the version of you that was always on, always giving, always reachable. But the version you're becoming now, she is sacred. He is untouchable. They are free. And in your freedom, you will see how the world begins to shift. Not because you forced it, not because you demanded anything, but because energy, once guarded, becomes radiant. When your availability ends, your essence begins. And the more you embody that essence, the more the right people, the right opportunities, the right silence finds you. You no longer beg. You attract. You no longer explain. You emanate. You no longer hustle to be seen. You become unforgettable by simply being real. But let me tell you this. The path of individuation, the path of becoming whole, is not for the faint of heart. It is lonely. It is disorienting. It demands that you watch yourself be misunderstood and not flinch. Because now you understand. The cost of being misunderstood is far less than the cost of self-betrayal. You have spent years contorting yourself into shapes for others. Now, you are becoming formless. You are becoming what you were before the world told you who to be. This is not disappearance. This is emergence. This is the reappearance of the authentic self, untamed by obligation, unshaken by guilt, unmoved by manipulation. And in that emergence, you discover a final truth. Being unavailable is not rejection. It is selection. And you are finally the one who chooses. Now, look around. Everything is still. Everything is silent. You are no longer reacting. You are observing. You are deciding. You are becoming. This is the moment where you stop chasing love that cost your peace. This is where you stop begging to be chosen and realize you already chose you. And yes, you may walk alone. But this time, it's not because no one walked with you. It's because no one else was meant to. You are not a role. You are not a reflection. You are not a resource. You are a force, a truth, a presence. And now, finally, you are whole. If this truth found you at the right moment, if it cracked something open inside you, then write this in the comments and let the world feel your choice. I choose my energy. I choose my peace. I choose me. And remember, the moment you stop being available, everything changed.